Hello, welcome to another episode of the Cool Tools Show and Tell. Our special guest this week is David Spira. David, would you like to introduce yourself to our listeners and watchers?
Hi, my name is David Spira. I am a user experience designer, product designer, just general maker of things. My wife and I, for the last 8 years, have run a website called roomescapeartist.com, where we have been reviewing escape rooms, tracking the industry growth, writing tips for creators, tips for players. We do all sorts of crazy projects related to this. We run a podcast, the Reality Escape Pod. We have a convention, the Reality Escape Convention. We run tours. We are just immersed in the world of immersive gaming.
That is fabulous. Maybe we can talk about escape rooms because it's a favorite of mine. In fact, my nephew now runs one in Astoria, Oregon. It's his little business, and I try to do them whenever I can, and not enough while traveling. I like to pick up that habit. But in any case, welcome, David. So, what's one of your favorite tools?
Okay, so first thing is a seemingly silly thing that has changed my life, and everyone who visits my home ends up copying this. As I said, user experience designer. I look at everything as, do I like this feature? And if I like it, how do I get rid of the parts that I don't like? And cooking is a big part of that. My wife and I cook a lot, and my wife does everything very quickly, and I do things very slowly and methodically. And together we are generally effective.
Okay.
But I was finding that whenever we were cooking together, things were like falling down between the stove and the cabinets, and it's a thing that happens. Mm-hmm. So I set out to find something that I could put to cover that gap. And I found these silicone strips. They are just flat silicone strips that have about a centimeter tall line coming of silicone coming off. Rib. Yeah. Yep. And they just fit right over that gap. And then nothing falls through, which eliminates a whole area of cleaning. And I am all about that.
Right. Now, this is like a long rubber strip, kind of like weather stripping.
Yep.
And is the piece that you're holding, was it made just for stove, or is it general weather stripping that's for other uses?
It was made for stove. I had made my own version of it just to kind of test the proof of concept. And then once I liked it, I started poking around, and in the depths of Amazon found something that was actually made for just this purpose.
Right. I'm wondering if they make it in white.
They make it in a few different colors. They make it in a few different lengths. And also because it's silicone, you can go and cut them and make them the length that you need.
Right. Yeah. So the tool here might be that if you have gaps in your appliances on your counter, here is a way to bridge that gap.
It's a great way to bridge the gap. Like I said, love removing cleaning tasks or simplifying them. And tied to that, I can't find these anymore, but I have, it looks like a large baking sheet. And you can just use a baking sheet to accomplish this. But when we cook, we will go and put one of these on top of the side of the stove we're not using. And
the side of I mean, to cover the other burners.
Yep. And that way, if there's spatter or anything happening, we just have to wipe down a smooth surface. We don't have to go and remove the grates and clean all the burners and everything.
Okay. All right. I get it. So you just flip over a large tray.
Put down, you can put down aluminum foil or something like that. But I wanted something reusable and durable that I just wouldn't have to think about and also wouldn't have to care about. And so I found this kind of aluminum tray thing to put on top.
I've noticed in some of the current stove designs where they have induction electric coils, it's a flat surface.
It is flat, but I got these back when we were living in an apartment and had that kind of surface, just because those things I kept finding that when they would heat up, if anything was on it, even if I didn't realize it was there, it would start to kind of melt and cake on.
Right.
And I felt so that was kind of where it even started, and it's sort of useful on both because
Okay.
it's nice to just have something you don't have to care about.
Right. Okay. Um, so the the gap strips, the gap
Yep.
covers, the gap bridges is one, and then just covering your
Yes.
burners with something that is handy and reusable.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay, good choices.
Thank
So,
you.
David, what's the second favorite tool of yours?
Second favorite tool. So we're content producers. We have a Patreon. It's, obligatory. And the thing that we do is largely about in-person experiences. And so we decided when we were creating the Patreon, we wanted to go and send a handwritten letter to our patrons and thank them. And we wanted to, we're always kind of trying to find interesting and nice touches to add. And so we ended up going and having custom wax seals
Whoa.
made, sealing stamps. These things are, you can see the logo for our website and the logo for our convention.
Yeah.
This is what it looks like. It's with
Wow.
gold sealing a envelope.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
We had these made. You can get them from a company called Nostalgic Impressions. It doesn't cost much at all to have them made. It looks like they just mill it out of a piece of brass. I imagine their operation is largely automated. And but that doesn't solve the problem of sealing with wax is a pain in the butt. Um, but there is another solve to that, and that's this stuff, which if you aren't watching,
It's
they're
like
cylinders. What they are is they're glue sticks. They're
yes.
hot glue sticks but instead of glue, they're wax, and you load them up into just any cheap glue gun, hot glue gun, and just once it's preheated, you squeeze out a dollop, hit it with the stamp, move on to the next one. It is a much faster, much more efficient way of using sealing wax.
That's a great hack. So the things you showed first were little stamps. They were kind of the size of a rubber stamp, but at the end was brass.
Yep.
Which had the engraved, so to speak, or cast logo that you would then, imprint onto the hot wax, which in this case is almost like hot glue. And that's a great hack. I wonder whether you could get away with actually 3D printing. That 3D printing does melt, but it melts at a probably much higher temperature than the wax does, and so you might be able to actually make a little stamp 3D printed.
You might. What I can tell you from wax sealing often is that the thing starts to heat up over time. The brass is good because if you're using it often, the brass is nice because it sort of disperses the heat.
Right.
But yeah, I'm sure you can make a stamp out of all sorts of stuff, and I know that you can carve them out of wood. Sure.
Yeah. The other thing related that we've done that's very similar is I'm not even sure what they call it, but it's an embosser.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a little disc, maybe 2 inches in diameter. And again, it has a cast shape to it, but in this case, there's two parts, and you have a levered like a pliers that squeezes the paper and embosses the logo or whatever you have onto a piece of paper. And it turns out that hand pressure is sufficient to do that. But we made one from Cool Tools that when we send a letter, we can emboss it.
And I love that. I'm going to steal that.
It looks like it's, and so you go on Amazon and you send them your design. The thing about it that I haven't really figured out is the discs that you put into it. It comes with a pliers, a leverage thing to carry it. But I suspect that you could, if you could find a place that would just give you the discs, you wouldn't have to keep getting the pliers for it. But right now they come together in most of the offerings that I've seen, and it's not that expensive, but uh, it's also very much like you, a very analog signal that says we're spending some time making this gesture of thanks, and people do notice.
And that's really what we're going for is, we handwrite everything, we hand seal it, we hand deliver it to the post office. And that's, it's just, it's funny that is a way of showing effort at this point, but it's at this point rare.
Yeah. So we'll have links to the stamps, the wax seal stamps, which are one of the most ancient artifacts we have. They have cuneiform versions from Babylonia. A lot of those things were actually wax seals. Yep. And you can still do it today in this 4,000-year-old tradition.
And it's fun.
Yeah. That's great. I love that. I had not thought about a wax seal, but that's really pretty cool. And they come in different colors.
They come in. You can get the sealing wax cylinders on Amazon. They come in tons of different colors, and pretty much any color you'd want.
By the way, this was a cool tool suggestion long ago. The one that I actually adopted is a cordless glue gun.
Yeah. So what I found is that I ended up going with a cheaper glue gun, partially because I want lower temperatures, and you kind of mess up the glue gun. You can't really use it as a glue gun anymore after you've put the wax through it. In fact, I would recommend having a glue gun for each color of wax you intend to use, unless you're cool with having the colors bleed into one another as they kind of clean themselves out.
Right.
So yeah, I use the cheapest glue gun I can get my hands on.
Okay. All right. There you go. Good suggestion. I love that. And they can get pretty cheap too, I'm sure.
It's like $7 glue gun or something like that. Maybe a little bit more now. I bought it a few years ago.
Okay. That's a great suggestion. And you, by the way, you can get hot glue in different colors too. And one of my favorite ones is black hot glue.
I did not realize that.
Black hot glue is really great for all kinds of things.
I bet.
If you're doing anything that's light proof, if you want to make it disappear, anything dark, it's just really great.
I'm going to be grabbing me some of that.
Okay. So David, you're on a roll. How about your third favorite tool?
Okay, we're going to go from probably the most ancient technology that has been suggested on here to one of the more modern ones. So I mentioned we have a podcast. It's the Reality Escape Pod. We put a lot of love into the production and edit of that show. Mm-hmm. And we started using Descript to do most of the editing work. Descript is a AI-driven software that you upload your sound files to, it ingests them, and then it outputs a text document that looks essentially like a Google Doc. And you can edit the audio as you would edit a Google document. So if there's an it shows up in the transcript, you delete it, and it gets cut from the sound file. It feels like black magic. You can copy and paste segments of things and just move them around. Like, you literally edit it like it was a text document. It is not perfect, and there are tons of tools to go and fine tune the cuts built right in, but also it generally just keeps on getting better. I feel like I use this software a lot, and I feel like every time I open it, it's prompting me to restart for a software update. They are iterating rapidly, and in the year or two that we've been using it, it just keeps getting better and better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I believe actually our editors use it as well. But I have not personally used it. When you try to modify a word, does it actually change the word? So if someone said, I'm working on a contract and you change it to contact, does it change the word as well?
Um, it's sort of like edit. You can treat it like you're editing the sound wave in any other audio editor. You might not be. You can't usually remove like a couple of letters from a word in the word processor side, but you can open up the waveform view, place your cuts, move things around. You can do all the things you would want to do in like GarageBand or any other kind of sound editing software. But you know, if you want to, in terms of the core features, when you're editing it as a text document, it really is kind of full words.
Right. So let's go back then to the Descript software. Is it a subscription base? Is it one time? What's the cost? Where does it run on? What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so it runs on kind of anything you'd want.
Is it browser based?
They have a browser based version of it, but I would strongly recommend that you use it. You download their client and use it locally. It is a resource intensive piece of software. But if you are just sending something for someone else to listen to real quick and give some feedback on, they can do it in the browser. They don't have to download anything. They don't have to pay for anything. They have a free tier that you can try out with 3 hours of transcription. It also handles video editing, although I have not edited video in it. There's a $12 a month plan that gets you 10 hours of transcription a month. They bump up to 24 for 30 hours a month, and they keep adding in features along the way. I think at this point we're using the $24 a month subscription on our team. But and then they also have custom enterprise versions if you need to go all in on that. And then there's a discount for paying for an annual subscription.
Right. So you upload the sound or video files, but presumably if it's editing just the sound on the video, I mean, I guess it's cutting the whole thing, but
yeah, I imagine it would cut the whole thing, but I honestly couldn't tell you how the video works. I only realized that they did that when I pulled up their pricing.
Right.
Oh, wow. I could do that on this too.
Sure. Okay, it's really great for, as you said, for podcasters especially, but anybody who's working in audio. I would imagine that this was the way to go these days, and I believe that's how our podcasts or video cast, whatever we want to call this thing that we do right here, or that they're using it on this as well.
It's so effective that the first few times I was using it, I felt like I was making a Faustian bargain and that I was going to have to pay back for it in some ridiculous way.
It's too good to be true.
Yeah.
There's a scam somewhere. I'm being scammed. I know it. Yeah. Well, great. So Descript, right?
Descript.
Right. We'll put that in Mac, probably Windows as well.
Yes, indeed.
Maybe even Linux. Who knows? Okay. So what's your fourth tool, David?
Fourth tool. So since, I'm an escape room puzzle guy, I figured I should show up with something that people could bring home and enjoy. And this is a game called The Light in the Mist.
Wow. I have not heard of it.
So it's made by a woman named Rita Orlov, who is one of my favorite tabletop escape room and puzzle creators. She is incredibly talented, and all of the things that she makes are both beautiful and just play so well. So she worked with someone named Jack Fallow, who is an artist, also a puzzle designer. Jack did all of the illustration. Rita did, I believe, the puzzle design and the coloring on this stuff. But what this is, I'm just opening it now. It is a deck of tarot cards that are also a narrative puzzle.
Wow.
So the box is beautiful. It's
This was like a card, like a box of cards.
Yeah, it's a box of tarot cards. I'm not really a tarot person,
right?
But this is the first tarot deck I've ever owned. But you open it up, and it is a full tarot deck. Leave the one in there. And the cards are just beautifully illustrated with this kind of haunting imagery. It's all very intricate.
Right.
And what's interesting about it is that it's a functional tarot deck if that's your sort of thing. If you would like it to just be a narrative, there is a booklet that kind of comes along with it, and there is a story that you can read from it. But the real way to take it in is to solve the puzzles, and as you solve puzzles, it prompts you to read different parts of the story. And you kind of do and then do the puzzles and then take in the story, and it's an intimate, beautiful little story. And the puzzles are, they're meaty enough that they will challenge you. They're not so hard that they'll blow your brains out. And there is also very effective hints provided via website. Rita gave a talk at our convention about the art of hinting puzzles. She's phenomenal at it. And especially if you're new to this kind of thing, use the hints liberally. If you are stuck, you're not having fun, the hints are not there to damage your ego. They are there to help you restart the fun.
That's a wonderful lesson. That is really great. I love that attitude.
And her company is called Post Curious. She has a few different games. This is kind of the most compact and I think approachable one. It's a really beautiful starting place. And you can buy this one from her website.
Right. So the idea of like the game, the full puzzle, let's call it, would last like several hours, a day, an afternoon, an evening.
It depends on how deep into it you want to dive. I think it took my wife and I maybe 6 hours over the course of 2 days.
Sure.
And we were kind of drifting in and out of it. We would go and solve a puzzle or two, and then we would go and do some stuff, and then we'd solve another one. And it's kind of, because the puzzles are a little bit bite-sized, you can put a little bit of time in and then, step away.
Right. And the name of the deck, again, is what?
It's called The Light in the Mist. The company is Post Curious. And the creators are Rita Orlov and Jack Fallow.
Okay. That's really, really great. I love this sort of duration. I know for a while my daughter was subscribing to these puzzle boxes that were kind of like mystery clues. I'm not really sure. Solving. I don't want to say they were crimes, but solving mysteries.
Was it probably Hunt a Killer? Maybe.
I'm not really don't remember, but it was the same kind of thing. A small group. You kind of go in and out. You're playing for several evenings. And you get to a certain level, and then you get more clues, and you go on. So it's really a wonderful, friendly way to solve the problems and puzzles. So, David, tell us about what your passions and what your latest project is. What do you want to share with people?
Yeah, I will. I'll tell you about the podcast. Reality Escape Pod is, because, podcast listeners usually listen to podcasts. So that's the thing I'll tell you about. I created this with PG Law. She is a 2-time Survivor player, an avid escape room player. And she and I basically made a show about interviewing makers of incredible immersive experiences. It really is at its core a maker show. And we've had guests from the tabletop gaming world, a lot of escape room guests, creators of haunts, creators of LARPs, you name it. We've had Alon Lee, who made Exploding Kittens on. We've had Neil Patrick Harris, the actor who also made Box One, which is an incredible tabletop escape game style experience. He really made something brilliant there. And this season, we're in the middle of it right now. It's the first season where all of our guests are escape room creators, and each one is from a different country. And escape rooms are heavily regional. There are major differences between the games in Greece versus the Netherlands versus different regions in the United States. It's sort of like if you think back to before the internet kind of started homogenizing music scenes, back when there would be like a Seattle sound and there would be, that's sort of how escape rooms feel these days. There are regional flavors and vibes and communities of creators who are vibing off of each other and, frequently kind of having a friendly competition with one another or one-upping each other. And so you end up with pockets around the world where escape rooms are especially incredible. And we like to explore that. I have
to pause you right there and say, where are some of those places?
Yeah, I got you. So in North America, I would say probably three of the top markets are Montreal, Canada, New Orleans and Baton Rouge. I'll clump them together. And then Los Angeles has a really vibrant community. There's amazing stuff in San Francisco. The Homescape Sunnyvale and Palace Games are especially incredible in that area. Also Trivium in Oakland. In Seattle, there's a company called Lo Curio. In Champaign-Urbana, Illinois, there's a company called CU Adventures. They are scattered everywhere. And then if you look in Europe, Barcelona, Spain, the Netherlands in general, and Athens, Greece, some really incredible stuff.
Wow. What about in Asia?
In Asia, so I have not been to China, but I have been told that Beijing, Shanghai, in particular, have some incredible kind of over-the-top experiences. Yeah, that's
okay.
But it really is a global thing.
Sure. So I interrupted you. Did you have more to say on your podcast?
No, I mean it's a labor of love. We have really brilliant and wonderful guests. They make ridiculous things and they care a lot about what they make. And it's just a lot of fun for us to explore what it is they do,
right?
What backgrounds they brought, and what their ambitions are, because they're all really different from one another.
So what's the kind of culture in the maker world? Generally, there was a willingness to share tips and techniques and stuff. Magic is a little different because there was this sort of guildiness about not sharing how things are done outside or selling tricks. What's the culture of the escape room world? Is it like people talking about how they made their puzzles and why, or is it a little bit more cagey?
So the really skilled makers tend to be very open. What I have found is that the more an escape room creator sort of gets super secretive about everything, the more generic their stuff tends to be. It's the top tier creators, the people who are really pushing boundaries, are all readily sharing information. They learn from one another. There's an escape room Discord where there's a tech channel and there are some brilliant technologists. And, these people are really from the maker community in this instance. It's a lot of Arduino and Raspberry Pi. Some people get into PLCs. But like I kind of came up through the maker space mentality, and there's a lot of that in the escape room world.
Right. It occurred to me that maybe not everybody listening knows what an escape room actually is. And so do you have a handy definition? I can make a try at it, but how would you describe it?
Yeah. So, I mean, escape rooms are immersive puzzle-driven adventures. You're in a defined space for a defined period of time. It's usually 1 hour, although some places go much longer, some places go a little shorter. And it's a collaborative adventure that you have with your friends. The early days, they were heavily puzzle focused. The more that they have iterated and evolved, they've become more about the adventure, more about the story. And some of these games will make you feel emotions you were not mentally prepared to feel in a puzzle game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. They're almost like an immersive experience rather than just a puzzle.
They're somewhere between a video game and a real life experience.
Mm-hmm.
And different people push on different boundaries. So wherever you go, the skills and the backgrounds of the creators are sort of imprinted on their creation.
Right. And I would say the better ones, at the simplest would have a theme, but these days they will even have a narrative.
They can have a narrative. They can have some incredible production value.
Right. Yeah. And as you said, the idea is that there's usually a limit or an ideal, a goal of how long you want to spend. And the other thing about them, again, I'm not an expert, but my experience
You're doing well so far
is that they're generally a cooperative, that you do it not alone. Yeah. You do it with friends or a group of people, a small group. And so a lot of the enjoyment as well as a lot of the success is due to that interpersonal communication, cooperation, collaboration, etc.
That was what appealed to me in the first place. I was, growing up really into video games, and I was really into LAN parties, and I loved the social aspect of playing video games with my friends.
Right.
And then as co-op started and competitive play started to become an online thing, and video game companies were frequently not even building in local options. Yeah. I kind of lost a lot of my interest in the medium. And then I found escape rooms, and I was like, this recaptured that love that I had for playing games with my friends. And that was what pulled me in the first place.
Right. My nephew runs an escape room in Oregon, and I asked him whether he could tell how successful a group would be before they started. And he said, yes. And I said, what's the clue? What's the tell? He says, from the degree of cooperation and a degree of communication with them before they start. It's, as he says, if it's a group that had not met before, they had a higher, or they were more unlikely to complete it. But if it was a group that really knew each other and had worked together, like a basketball team or high school sports team or something like that, they were much more likely to succeed.
I think he's 100% correct. Escape rooms, people who haven't done them or haven't done many of them think that they're an intellectual challenge. And there is an element of that. But if escape rooms are testing anything, they're actually testing your ability to work with people. And I would rather play with someone who isn't that bright, but is really collaborative and kind and communicative than the smartest person in the room who is just kind of steamrolling everybody. And that kind of person tends to break down the cohesiveness, which is true of any team.
We've sometimes tried to assemble some people to try and have a good time, and we like to have a person who's not particularly good at puzzles, but who's very good at keeping a group going and collaborating, communicating, and that's their role. Their role is to just keep that communication lines going, particularly if you have these rooms that are more what's the word, sprawling or bigger than just a little closet. That's really great. And it also occurred to me that just now, I had not thought of it, but there's the whole VR room stuff might transition or might blend into escape rooms, because they are some like the Void, where they're half analog and half VR. They have, you have your goggles on and you see this alternative world, but they have walls that you can feel and you have things that you pick up that you can hold in your hand, even though they are transformed in your mind. There's still this experiential analog thing. And I just now imagine that those two might actually blur the line and converge at some point.
There are a few video game publishers that have made VR escape rooms that are B2B. They're sold to escape room companies and VR arcades. So Ubisoft has 3 different games, 2 of them set in the Assassin's Creed world, one in Prince of Persia, and you can play those frequently at select escape room facilities. There's a company called Exit VR out of Berlin, Germany. They made a couple of games, the Huxley series. They're quite good. Speaking to escape room owners, it has turned out that the audience for escape rooms and the audience for VR escape rooms, there is some overlap, but not as much as you would expect. It tends to be people looking for different things, and they tend to have to be marketed differently to different people.
Right.
I love all of it, but I also understand the difference.
Right. Well, and that if we come to the stage eventually where we have these smart glasses, that might be one way in which there's more of an overlap.
For sure. And some folks have used AR in escape rooms in some interesting ways. And escape room creators will take anything and turn it into a puzzle.
Right. I still remember one of the hacks for the VR escape rooms, which is called, there's a term for it. I forget what it is called. I don't know, something systematic misdirection. But what it is that when you turn your head, it's what you see is actually not as far as you've turned your head. And so they can make it appear as if you are walking in a straight line, but you're really just walking in a circle.
Oh, that's really interesting.
Okay. So you think you're in a straight line, but actually they're making you go in a circle. So you think you're walking miles and miles, whatever it is, but you're just within the room. And they can do other kinds of things, like say you have there's a wooden handle in front of you. They can make it in VR. There could be 5 different handles. And you're reaching for this handle on the left, but it's actually the same handle that you're picking up each time.
I've seen some stuff like that. That is really incredible to experience that. Yeah.
So they're misdirecting with really a few degrees of difference, and you can't really tell that. And you have this idea, and they do the same thing with stairs and stuff, where basically there's these minimal amounts of things or furniture in the room that they can repurpose in multiple ways by tricking what you see and shifting it a little bit. And that's incredibly ingenious, I thought.
Yeah, there was an experience called Unchained, which was a Dickens Scrooge sort of VR experience. It's more immersive theater than escape room, where you were kind of cast in the role of Scrooge and having to kind of converse with a performer who was rendered in VR. But the experience started without the visor, and you ended up in this room, and you get kind of what feels to you. They fit you with the headset, and as it's on, they change the space around you and what you thought was around you, and you get kind of pulled into this world that is a blend of virtual and physical. It was a beautiful experience. Right.
So let's end with some very practical advice and suggestion. I know that you review or kind of at least try to overview escape rooms. So for a person who maybe has never done any, what would be a first step for them? Presumably you try to find something locally, but if you were willing to travel or were traveling and wanted to try out rooms, what should you know? How would you evaluate whether it's worthwhile and you got a good one? Is it on Yelp at this point? Yeah. So what's your recommendations?
My recommendation to you: escape rooms are not all created equal. And just like anything, there is the full gamut of quality, from things that will blow your mind to things that will leave you wondering why you just spent your money on this. So what I would recommend you do is check out, and you can check out our website, roomescapeartist.com. We've been reviewing for the last 8 years. I've reviewed more than 1,000 games myself.
Wait. So you personally have gone to 1,000 escape rooms?
Little over.
Wow, that's amazing. Okay, keep going.
Yeah. We have we also have a number of reviewers who have covered. If you are looking for something specific, feel free to shoot us a message. We love helping people find the right games for them. There are also other resources. There's an app called Morty, which is sort of like a Yelp that for finding immersive experiences. I will say up front, I am an advisor to Morty, but I'm a big fan of what the company is trying to do. There is a project called the Top Escape Room Project Enthusiast Choice Awards, or Turpica. I did not name it, but I do advise the project. This is a kind of large scale attempt to get really experienced escape room players from all over the world to nominate and then rank games. And it's got an incredibly complex algorithm. It's made by a guy named Rich Bragg. He's an ex-Googler. He works miracles with math. Turpica is a really great place for finding incredible escape rooms.
So is there a rating system?
There's a website. Every year we publish the top couple hundred from that. Anything that is in the top 200 or so is going to be exceptional. May not be the best for beginners, but it will be exceptional. There is an escape room community. It's pretty vibrant. There's a Facebook community and regional Facebook groups. The people in those groups will be more than happy to help you find stuff in your area. There is an escape room Discord. There's a big community of people, and in general, they just really like making sure people play good games.
Yeah. So a first start would be to go to your website and see if you've reviewed that one by chance.
Yep.
And then if not, maybe go into this other app to see
Morty or Turpica that has a website, the various Facebook groups, Discord, whatever it is. If you need help, there are people to help you find it. In terms of going to an escape room, dress sensibly, bring a group of people that you feel comfortable with, that you enjoy being around, people that play well together. That's my advice is, if somebody's on the fence about going, don't drag them, find someone else to go with. Once you're there, just enjoy yourself. Remember that your game master is not there to trick you. They are there to help you. Hints are not your enemy. Take them when the energy in your room starts to dip. Right. More than 1,000, I still take them. When I start feeling the energy in the room start to dip, what I will say to my teammates is, hey, feels like we're losing some steam. If we don't make any progress in the next 2 minutes, I think we'll call for a hint.
Right.
And in doing that, it gives everyone a chance to make their last ditch efforts. For people whose egos might be feeling bruised at the idea of taking a hint, it gives them a chance to have some acceptance about this. And, just remember that this is ultimately all about having fun.
Right. I know there are a couple of places where they actually tell you how to get better at the puzzle part of it. And so, so that's really great, sensible advice. I really appreciate that. I do recommend people try out some escape rooms in their area if there are any. It's fun. My wife actually takes her corporate lab on offsites. They've done offsites as a group to these just team building, that kind of stuff. And that's another way of doing it. It
is indeed.
Take a group of your peers. Well, this has really been fabulous, David. Thank you for this. We took a little longer, but I love hearing about escape rooms. I couldn't
Thank you for having me. I love talking about escape rooms.
Yeah, okay, it's really great. We'll have put some links there in the show notes. And again, thank you for your time and for your great tools. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
We're glad that you enjoyed this issue of the Cool Tools Show and Tell. Just want to remind you that we have some other coolish material on our YouTube channel here. Please subscribe, comment, like. In addition, this Cool Tools Show and Tell is also available in an Audible podcast form. You can subscribe to it wherever you subscribe to other podcasts if you just wanted to listen. And if you're listening, know that there is a visual version of this on our YouTube channel where we're actually showing the tools, and there's a little bit more of a visual component there. In addition, the same folks that put us, the Cool Tools website out, we also put out a free newsletter every week. It's very, very short. It's 1 page or less. We recommend 6 very brief items that are very succinct, easy to read. You can deal with it in a couple minutes. And every week we bring to you the 6 cool things that we have uncovered and want to share. And it's called Recommendo with 1 M, recommendo.com. You'll be able to find it there. It's free. Join 50,000 plus other subscribers every Sunday morning. You'll get it in your email box. And it's actually one of the most popular things that we produce. But we do produce other newsletters as well. One of them is called What's in Your Bag. We have one that goes out to tools and tips for your workshop. So you can get those at our website, and they are also free. And finally, I want to mention the fact that we do have a Patreon, and this podcast and this vidcast are supported by Patreon supporters. The minimum is $1 a month. And for that, you get an email to ask us anything. We'll respond and answer your question if we're able to. There are other higher levels. You can all see those at our Patreon page. And all those links are below right here. So thank you again for being a fan. And we'll keep producing stuff if you enjoy it. Thanks. Thank you to this week's patrons, which include Sari Willis, Jamie Ehrman, Brian Brooks, David Rager, Allison Pescosolio, John Hobson, Alan Lawson, Bill Patrick, Chip Riggs, and John Paul Bosoli. Thank you all.